Small. Wow, tiny.
You are currently listening to Tiny Table,
where we explore TTRPGs you might not have heard of.
Whether big or small, we hope to cover them all.
Because we know that great things can come in tiny packages.
Howdy folks, this is Skylar, and the following episode is our rules rundown for Daggerheart. If you already feel fully equipped to tackle the fearsome foes ahead, then feel free to venture forth to the actual play episodes. However, if it's your first time, you need a refresher, or you simply want to hear more from our bravest bard Neo, then sheathe your sword, fill your flagon, and we'll give you all you need to know. Now onwards!
Daggerheart wants to be the biggest fantasy heartbreaker this side of Pathfinder 2e. This tactical fantasy game will appeal to fans of Critical Role, because by gum, they're the folks who are making it. The world of Daggerheart is heroic, whimsical, and suffused with both hope and fear. Frog-faced bandits leap from the trees to beset wary travelers. Ancient magics of forgotten gods find purchase on the lilting melodies of a new age turtle bard. Demi-human races abound, from the fungal to the feline, alongside all your modern fantasy staples like orcs and elves. The forces of evil are powerful, but with hope, determination, and a little shenanigans, our heroes will surely save the day. If you've ever played the world's most popular role-playing game and you've felt friction with its 50 years of game design cruft, Daggerheart is here with a fresh, narrative-first perspective. Whether you're a giant guardian, a robotic rogue, or a dwarven druid, you'll be a hero who brings hope in the face of fear in Daggerheart. What you'll need. From here on in, we'll be referring to the version of the playtest rules we utilize for our adventure, Playtest 1.3. When we reference page numbers, we'll be referencing the page numbers of the 1.3 PDF. As a game still in development, rules are subject to changes and updates, but so far we've found their design process between versions has been lightly iterative, so it seems the core bones are fairly solid at this point. Daggerheart is designed for a table size of 3 to 6 players, one of whom acts as the game master, while the remainder play individual characters. Encounter difficulty rules are provided on page 199 to give broad guidance on how to balance an easy, standard, challenging, or climactic encounter. So you shouldn't have too difficult a time playing any adventure with any group size, so long as you scale the encounters to match the player count. Daggerheart is designed with campaign play in mind, as character progression relies as much on the stories played at the table as it does on class-based abilities. This comes in the form of experiences, which are small statements that highlight elements of your character's story and ethos that they can rely on during gameplay. You'll start with 2 and gain another with each level, ensuring your character's strengths are always tied to the experiences they've gathered during their journey. That said, it's easy to drum up a one-shot adventure for heroes of any level, so long as players are fine with fleshing out their backstories for higher-level characters. Anyone who's ever written a multi-page backstory for a brand new PC will feel right at home here. Looking at you, Holly. To play, everyone will need a full set of dice, from a D4 to a D20, plus an additional D12 of a different color. You'll also need a collection of tokens that can be easily passed back and forth, like beads or poker chips. Free character sheets have been included in the playtest materials, all of which can be downloaded from daggerheart.com/play. During its playtest period, all of Daggerheart's materials are free to download, including the full card packs for all character abilities. Daggerheart encourages each player to select a different ancestry, background, and class, so that a single printout of these ability card sheets can support the whole table. We anticipate that when the full game launches, they'll be selling a nice official deck of cards along with it to make your myriad combat abilities easy to remember and reference. Before we get into preparation, some quick content warnings. While Daggerheart is definitely positioning itself as a heroic fantasy game with more modern sensibilities, it is still fundamentally built around the core gameplay loop of good people from the civilized world solving problems through violence and conquest, usually aimed at an uncivilized external force. Daggerheart generally takes the Rainbow Coalition of Man approach to decolonizing fantasy, where orcs and goblins can be just as effective as members of the Imperial Corps as their human counterparts. All jokes aside, this is just to say that if you've played D&D, all of the same content warnings apply here. Physical violence, death and dismemberment, cults and sacrifices, fell magics. Standard pulp fantasy fare. In our own play, we showcase physical violence in episodes 1 and 3, with some memory-related traumas in episode 3 and some lewd humor throughout. Preparation. For players, rolling a new character is a highly customizable experience. Your unique combination of class, ancestry, and background will determine which domains and abilities your characters brings to bear. These domains all evoke classic tropes of fantasy heroism, such as the weapon mastery of the blade domain, the instinctual magic of arcana, or the deft charm of grace. From your 2 domains, you'll select abilities each time you level up, making each class modular and easy to customize. It'd also be pretty easy to homebrew an entire class of your own by combining 2 domains not yet paired in the core rules, if such game designerly interests were to cross your mind. Once you've determined your character's abilities, as well as the modifiers for your 6 traits, it's time to focus on their story. Each class provides a list of questions, all of which are great jumping-off points to flesh out your backstory and motivate your entrance into a narrative of adventurous daring-do. Cap things off by defining 2 experiences, each of which can grant you a bonus to a roll if you act in accordance with the experience and spend a hope. More on hope and fear in a moment. For game masters, preparing a session for Daggerheart relies more on your dramatic sensibilities than your dungeon design acumen. Daggerheart aims to build itself around the style of serialized adventure seen in many of your favorite D&D actual play shows. The rules of the game focus more on drama than on simulation, and there are no procedures given for things like dungeon crawling or overland travel. Monsters and other baddies are generally assumed to be a fair challenge to our fair heroes, with danger ramping in tandem with the narrative stakes. Rolls should only be called for when success or failure would dramatically alter the scene. Heroes start strong and get dramatically stronger, though they won't end up with the universe-bending abilities that often mire high-level D&D with frustrating busywork for the DM. The playtest includes several thrilling locations, starting on page 253, each complete with settlements, factions, and landmarks. From the chimeric animals of the Sablewood to the debt-chained ghosts of the City of Obligation, there are all manner of unique creatures and fantastical organizations with which to confront your party of wayward adventurers. If you're going to create your own adventures for Daggerheart, you'll need a quest with a goal that ties into its dramatic theme. The drama-first design of Daggerheart's rules means its heroes can operate as well in lavish city centers as they do in dank, forgotten crypts. Just remember to give them a situation that will eventually call for swinging swords and slinging spells. For a one-shot adventure, keep things clean with a well-defined objective established at the very start. Nothing wrong with the heroes being hired by a well-meaning beneficiary or a wealthy financier. For a longer adventure, elaborate on your core theme by introducing competing factions whose disagreements deepen the drama. Maybe the party's initial benefactor is not as well-meaning as they seem. Perhaps the artifact the heroes recover does something different, darker, more dangerous than advertised. Or maybe the mission itself will accomplish a great good, but to accomplish it, our heroes must commit an evil act. Put physical obstacles like monsters and traps between the heroes and their goal. As these physical obstacles are defeated, introduce dramatic complications that deepen the heroes' understanding of the world and their place in it. If you've got a job what needs heroes, multiple interested parties, and a dramatic conclusion that brings all the key players together, you're ready to run a game of Daggerheart. Modes of play. Daggerheart features 2 modes of play, non-violence and violence. Non-violence entails the same basic back and forth of information as you'd find in Dungeons & Dragons or any other dungeon crawler. The game master lays out the scene before the players with a brief description. The players and GM ask and answer questions to clarify, and the dramatic uncertainties of the players' actions are resolved with die rolls. Daggerheart prompts its GMs to open up aspects of the world building to the players in real time. Instead of describing every aspect of the magical forest, the GM might say, "The forest is old and magical. Can each of you give me a curious detail your character notices as you travel?" When it comes time to roll, the player will roll their 2 differently colored D12s, one representing hope, the other representing fear. The sum of the D12's results gives the total of the roll, and whichever die is higher indicates if the roll is a roll with hope or with fear. You'll also add modifiers like the relevant character trait and possibly extra bonuses from your experiences. For example, if a player rolled a 7 on their fear die and an 11 on their hope die, then add +2 from their agility and +1 from their experience as a mountaineer, the result would be a 21 with hope. You can find the full rules for these duality dice on page 89. Hope and fear results drive both the narrative action and the meta economies of Daggerheart. While games like D&D build their main meta-economic tensions over resources like spell slots and per-rest abilities, Daggerheart's meta is more of a fluid back and forth between GM and player. This is realized via the tokens in the center of the table, which represent both hope and fear. When the player has a token, their character has a hope, of which they can have up to 6. When the GM has a token, they have a fear, also capped at 6. These meta currencies power both player abilities and GM actions respectively. When you succeed with hope, you achieve the action you desired smoothly, and you gain a hope. When you succeed with fear, you get what you want, but it comes at a cost or consequence. The GM can either make a move to complicate your journey or take a fear to spend later. On a failure with hope, you don't get what you want and there are some consequences. You gain a hope to spend later, but the GM makes a move to worsen the situation. On a failure with fear, things go very poorly, with major consequences or complications. The GM makes a move or gains a fear, and you're probably in a worse place than you started. If your 2 rolls are the same result, that's a critical success. Take a hope, clear a stress, and if you're attacking, deal extra damage equal to the max value of your damage dice. This same resolution mechanic, called the action roll on page 93, is used during both non-violent and violent modes of play. During combat, you'll often make attack rolls with the trait determined by the weapon, or spellcast rolls with the trait determined by your class. Difficulty ranges from 5 for very easy to 30 for nearly impossible. When your attacks are rolled, the difficulty is determined by the evasion score of the target. On a hit, your damage is determined by rolling a number of weapon dice equal to your proficiency, which starts at 1 and can increase as you level. Daggerheart uses a damage threshold system to determine damage done on a hit, with each character and creature having different numbers that constitute a minor, major, and severe wound, which deal 1, 2, or 3 points of damage respectively. Armor doesn't make you harder to hit. It instead presents its own pool of armor points, which you can spend to lower damage received, possibly knocking it down to a lower damage threshold. Because characters start with 6 points of health, the difference between taking 3 damage and 2 is significant. When it comes time to take up arms and hail down blows, flow of play is dictated by the action tracker, with rules on page 108. The action tracker is a sheet placed in the middle of the table. Players can act in any order they desire, and play proceeds in blocks. When a player acts, they place a token on the action tracker to indicate they've begun their turn, during which they can move and take an action. Play proceeds until a player fails a roll or succeeds with fear. At that point, the GM can use however many tokens on the action tracker that they'd like to activate adversaries of their own, removing a token from the tracker for each adversary that takes a turn. An activated adversary can move and take an action, clear a condition, or flee. Tokens on the action tracker can also be converted to and from fear on a 2-to-1 basis. Fear is the GM's resource to fuel powerful adversary abilities and environmental hazards. Fear can also be spent at any time to interrupt the player's turns and let the GM take control of the battlefield, usually in a desperate moment. Combat is the time the GM can take all of the fear they've accumulated up to this point and ratchet up the tension of combat. You can find fear rules on page 154. In the face of such fear, you're going to need hope. In addition to fueling the player's combat maneuvers, hope can also be spent to call upon experiences that are relevant to the role, granting a bonus to the outcome. Alternatively, hope can be spent to provide aid to others, lending them your own hope dice roll as a second option if theirs rolls poorly. If you've got a lot of hope and want to show them what you can do as a team, you can spend 3 hope to initiate a tag team roll, working with another player to accomplish something incredible beyond your regular means. Work together to determine how you cooperate, be it fastball special or modern literature. Then each of you roll. Choose between yourselves which roll to use, and watch the sparks fly as you reach beyond your limits, beat the odds, and deal double damage in combat. When the dust settles, your characters will have time to dress their wounds, repair their armor, clear some stress, and prepare for what comes next. After you accomplish your goal, you'll level up, further customize your character's abilities, and deepen your experiences. At the end of it all, you're sure you'll have a grand story to tell. Legal. This product was created using the Darrington Press Community Gaming License. The Daggerheart open beta materials are owned and copyrighted by Darrington Press, LLC, all rights reserved. This product is based on the following public game content created and owned by Darrington Press, Daggerheart open beta materials, Darrington Press, LLC, 2024. Available at daggerheart.com. Tiny Table is an independent production by Tiny Table, LLC, and is not affiliated with Darrington Press. And with that, you're ready to set out on your own adventure. Go forth and inspire hope, you intrepid heroes.
Hi, and thank you for listening to our podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, then we'd really appreciate if you left us a review. If you really like what we do here and want to support us further, you can join us at patreon.com/tinytablepodcast. Our business email is also open for inquiries at tinytablebusiness@gmail.com, and all of our socials can be found in the episode description for any shenanigans you might want to follow. Till next time, see ya!